Ever since COVID, a bigger spotlight has been shown on the Chinese Communist Party's biowarfare program. And regardless of whether the COVID virus itself was an aspect of that program or not, let's completely set that aside for the interest of today's episode. The fact remains that the Chinese Communist Party does have a very large and very viable biowarfare program in place, of which the Wuhan Virology Lab was just a small component. And one of the most shocking things that they're developing is a biological weapon that can target and attack the DNA strands specific to certain racial groups, which obviously, for one, sounds extremely conspiratorial, and secondly, just sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. Or perhaps what's most shocking about it is the fact that it's true. The Chinese Communist Party is indeed developing these weapons that can target specific race and ethnicity markers within the human genome. And this is not even something new. This has been going on for a while. For instance, 21 years ago, back in the year 2005, a then colonel in the Chinese PLA, the People's Liberation Army, he wrote an article that was widely read that, quote, looked up military uses of proteomics, which are transgenic technologies used to vastly enrich the military's ability to defend and attack. Colonel Guo elaborated that biotechnology affords, or soon will afford, militaries with the ability to design agents that attack only key enemies without harming ordinary people. Injuries might be limited to a specific gene sequence or a specific protein structure. Now, back then, it was probably theoretical, but as technology has gotten more and more advanced, this threat has become more and more real. For instance, in 2017, you had a retired Chinese National Defense University president. He made the argument that, quote, modern biotechnology is gradually showing strong signs characteristic of an offensive capability, including the possibility that specific ethnic genetic attacks could be employed. That very same year, by the way, 2017, which was 9 years ago, the People's Liberation Army, they added a new section on biology as a domain of warfare to their National Defense University textbook. And in that section, there's a subsection where they highlight specific ethnic genetic attacks as a potential future vector capability. And interestingly, that very same textbook in 2020, the 2020 edition of that same textbook, it emphasizes even more the growing importance of biotechnology on the battlefield. It reads the following. Quote, the biological field has become a brand new territory for the expansion of national security. For example, the use of new biological weapons, bioterrorism attacks, large-scale epidemic infections, specific ethnic genetic attacks, and purposeful genetic modification of the ecological environment, food and industrial products, and the use of environmental factors such as population migration, climate change, and natural disaster. That is literally who's of conspiracy theories written in the PLA military textbook. Now, all of this might make it a lot more clear as to why the CCP has been able to stitch together the largest collection of American DNA profiles anywhere in the world, even larger than what the US has been able to collect. And the CCP has done this, by the way, not only through good old-fashioned hacking, but also through more traditional channels, such as purchasing the data from DNA sequencing companies. But sometimes the CCP does not even have to purchase this data. As an example of what I mean by that, this right here is BGI. They are one of the largest manufacturers of prenatal tests used around the world. And wouldn't you know it, this company, BGI, they've been sharing the genetic data of pregnant women from 52 different countries with the Chinese military. And at this point, you might be wondering two questions. First of all, what use does the Chinese military have with all this data? And second of all, what would be the explanation, the benign explanation for sharing? Well, the answer to that second question is actually rather simple. It has to do with a concept called precision medicine. All right, just a pause here for a super quick snack break brought to you by today's sponsor, Masa Chips. Probably the healthiest chips on the market. They're made with exactly 3 ingredients: organic blue corn, 100% grass-fed beef tallow, and sea salt. You really don't get much better than this. I mean, long-term viewers of the show, you probably know that prior to the 90s, almost all fries and chips in this country were made with beef tallow. But then after the 90s, in order to save costs, almost every single manufacturer switched to using seed oils. But you know the problem with seed oils, all those studies showing their links to inflammation and metabolic diseases. So you kind of want to get them out of your diet. But then what are you going to do? You're going to move into some cave out in the mountains? Or you just get Masa chips. You put them in your cupboard. That way when you, your wife, or your kids, they want a snack, you just grab one of these. They're so good. They are crunchy. They don't break when you dip them into guac. And the best part is because they're made with beef tallow, they actually are satiating. So when you eat them, you don't feel like you're hungry afterwards, like 10 minutes later. There's no bloating feeling. There's no crash. There's no feeling of regret afterwards. You just eat them, you feel great, and then you go about your day. And the best part is that to our viewers, to the viewers of Facts Matter, Masa is offering a great promotional sale. Just head on over to masachips.com/Roman. And if you use promo code Roman, you can save 25% off your first order. And so again, masachips.com/Roman. Use promo code Roman for 25% off and check them out. They sponsor the show. They care about getting the truth out there, and they care about your health, which is why they don't compromise in the ingredients. So check them out. And now let's head back to the episode. And the positives of precision medicine are rather obvious. If you go to a doctor and that doctor has information about your genetic makeup, then they can tailor their treatment perfectly to your individual specific body. As an example of what precision medicine looks like in practice, in the year 2004, scientists at the University of Wisconsin, they injected what they called naked DNA directly into the veins of a lab rat for easy access into muscle cells. Here was an excerpt from their research paper. Quote, "In the experiments, the scientists did not use viruses to carry genes inside cells. Instead, they used naked DNA. Naked DNA poses fewer immune issues because, unlike viruses, it does not contain a protein coat, hence the term naked, which means it cannot move freely from cell to cell and integrate into the chromosome. As a result, naked DNA does not cause antibody responses or genetic reactions that can render the procedure harmful. The injections yielded substantial, stable levels of gene activity throughout the leg muscles in healthy animals with minimal side effects." The lead scientist noted that, quote, "We detected gene expression in all leg muscle groups, and the DNA stayed in muscle cells indefinitely." Now, whatever your thoughts are on gene therapy, at the very least, these Wisconsin-based scientists do appear to be doing their research for benign purposes, to be able to tailor specific strands of DNA for specific individuals. However, listen to what the colonel within the People's Liberation Army, listen to him describe his thoughts on this particular gene therapy breakthrough, which took place at the University of Wisconsin. Quote, "University of Wisconsin scientists have made exogenous naked DNA and injected it into veins for easy access into muscle cells for gene therapy. By combining this knowledge and particle gun technology, we could create a microbullet out of a 1 micrometer tungsten or gold ion on whose surface plasmid DNA or naked DNA could be precipitated and deliver the bullet via a gunpowder explosion, electron transmission, or high-pressure gas to penetrate the body's surface. We could then release DNA molecules to integrate with the host cells through blood circulation and cause disease or injury by controlling genes." Now that is rather on the nose. But it's also not theoretical because, for one, as a part of China's previous 5-year plan regarding precision medicine, they made a specific point to mention that while at the same time they're collecting the world's DNA, no one should be allowed to collect the Chinese people's DNA. Here's specifically what they wrote under a subsection called Regulations of the People's Republic of China on the Management of Human Genetic Resources. Quote, "National security focus includes special limitations on foreign access. Foreign organizations, individuals, and their institutions established or actually controlled shall not collect or preserve human genetic resources in China within the territory of our country and may not provide human genetic resources of our country abroad." Meaning that while they can collect the world's DNA, including Americans' DNA, no one in the organization is allowed to touch the DNA of Chinese people. Furthermore, the Chinese state has dumped a massive amount of money into these precision medicine programs to the tune of roughly $9 billion. You compare that to America's precision medicine initiative, which saw only $215 million worth of initial investment, meaning in a practical sense, China has pumped in roughly 43 times more money into these programs than the US. And those numbers, by the way, are from a few years ago. Maybe there's a lot more money going into these programs now, but those numbers are also only what's publicly known about. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And China is not like a normal country with a clear separation of the private sector and the government and the military. Instead, the reality is, if it's in China, it ultimately belongs to the Chinese Communist Party. And so keeping that in mind, let's take another quick look at what that colonel in the People's Liberation Army said about the future of weapons that the PLA is developing. Quote, "Humaneness in the conduct of war has become the focus of attention recently, and weapons of mass destruction are banned to reduce casualties. The times call for new kinds of weapons, and modern biotechnology can contribute such weapons. In the near future, when military biotechnology is highly developed, modern biotechnology will have a revolutionary influence on the organization of military power with its more direct effects on the main entity of war, human beings. Modern biotechnology offers an enormous potential military advantage. A quick shout out to our new coffee sponsor, Hunter's Blend Coffee. It's a great brand run by patriots. The coffee is great. It's fresh. They actually source their beans from the top 6% of Q-graded beans. And then they roast and package it right here in the US and ship it directly to your doorstep in vacuum sealed packages, super fresh. So check them out. The link will be down there in the description box below. They support the show. Let's support them right back. Now, the other day when I was hosting my other program, Primetime, I got a chance to speak with Joshua Phillip on exactly this topic. For your reference, he's a senior investigative journalist with the Epoch Times who's been looking into these PLA programs for well over a decade. And here's what he had to say.
You know, one of the big things, because people say, well, don't companies here do it too? The big problem you have with the Chinese Communist Party is its data laws. So unlike in the United States where Facebook scoops up everything and Twitter or whatever, X, I guess now, scoops up everything, and you know, your medical company scoops up, which they don't as much. They're moving towards it. Scoops up everything. You know, it's in private companies. The federal government can't necessarily access that. Even if they do, they can't necessarily legally share it between different departments. Even with Trump trying to get data on, like, you know, illegal immigrants across different departments, it's very hard because they get legally challenged on it. In China, it's not like that. Everything is centralized. Chinese data laws require that every single piece of data, whether you're foreign or domestic, if a Chinese search engine company buys data from an American company, which they sell it to them, right? Your social media company is probably selling your data to a Chinese company. And when they get it, the CCP gets access to it. All of it is centralized. All of it is searchable, and all of it is being used to create bioweapons. It's being used to do profiles on you, like the social credit system, which they're actually building internationally right now through the Belt and Road Initiative as part of their infrastructure programs.
No,
they are. They are.
They cannot be diverting resources to building profiles on people overseas.
They absolutely
Random people.
I reported this back in probably like 2012-ish.
With AI, it's pretty
I guess, but
now.
what's the point of like John, you know, the Smith?
John,
I don't know. Shoot, I was thinking Smith or just okay, John the blacksmith over in Portland, Oregon. Like
we still have blacksmiths.
No, they do it. They do it because this. I mean, it's not hard to do when you're dealing with, of course, AI.
Yeah.
The more data, the better. And the fact is, when you buy this data from those companies, that's what advertisers are doing already.
But not DNA data. That's the surprising part.
No, that's how they categorize it. Because what use is that when they stole data from OPM, right, Office of Personnel Management, on the entire federal government databases, including the "What did you do wrong in your life" test, where they go for your security clearances, all that was stolen by the CCP. When they were breaching and stealing through Chinese hackers all the American medical data, why do you think they were doing that? It's because they're building databases on Americans.
So speaking of breaching,
and they also, as part of the Chinese social credit system, they want to find out who Chinese are talking to and have relations to outside of China. It's not even just Americans. They want data on everybody.
That's wild. So speaking of breaching, what about these Chinese artificial wombs?
Well, first, though, on the DNA point, like why this is in the news a bunch is because earlier in April of this year, the affordable at-home DNA testing company 23andMe filed for bankruptcy. And the reason it's like causing concern is it has over more than 15 million people's genomic data from over 50 countries. And so Beijing has a history of coming in when companies are filing for bankruptcy and being like, great, I will get it at a profit. And so you have a couple different people raising concerns about this. One of them is Craig Singleton. He's from the Foundation for Defense on Democracies. And he's citing, previous speeches by Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping talking about stuff like this. So Xi himself has described biotechnology as the next critical domain in global competition, saying whoever controls big data technologies, to Josh's point, will control the resources for development and have the upper hand. And why that matters, again, to the laws you're talking about is because China has a 2020 biosecurity law that grants Beijing absolute authority over all biological samples stored by or accessible to Chinese entities, regardless of where the data physically resides. So even if it's an American company, but it has like a joint venture with a Chinese one, under this law, Beijing, if it wants, can be like, great, let me check on that. And you also have the China's national intelligence law and cybersecurity laws, which also require Chinese biotech entities to support state intelligence efforts when they're called upon. And so, again, why it's like you have another huge company called Beijing Genomics Institute, which is now under BGI Group. A couple years ago, it was added onto the U.S. Defense Department's list of Chinese military-affiliated companies, which raises the concerns that Josh was talking about. When you have that civil
BGI
military
Genomics, one of the
fusion.
big ones, talking about the super soldier program, they're calling it, which is creating more perfect humans. To,
They did the COVID test too. Right?
yeah, they were. They did the COVID test. BGI Genomics is tied to the Chinese military, which is some of the big concerns being raised.
If you want to watch that entire segment, you can check it out on the Primetime YouTube channel. It'll be linked down in the description box below. And also, if you would like to dig through any of my research notes from today's episode regarding these CCP DNA weapons, I will throw those into the description box as well. And all I ask in return is that as you're making your way down there to that description box, please take a super short detour to smash those like and subscribe buttons so that the YouTube algorithm will pick up this episode and share it with ever more people. Thank you so much for that. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed. Most importantly, stay free.